First contact, Doctor. Eleanor Reeves adjusted her station uniform as she waited in the Helios station's diplomatic reception chamber. After years of studying Lyrian language patterns from a distance, today she would meet an actual Lyrian face-to-face. Remember, this artifact could change everything, Director Harlow said, pacing beside her. The translation must be perfect. One misinterpreted glyph could set our relations back decades. Elena nodded, but her thoughts were elsewhere. The ancient cylindrical artifact discovered in the neutral zone had confounded the best linguists from both species. Its spiral inscriptions resembled both early Lyrian script and Proto-Earth languages, an impossibility given that their civilizations evolved light years apart. The chamber doors parted with a soft hiss. Elena's breath caught as the Lyrian envoy entered. Theron Vax moved with fluid grace, his tall, slender form draped in layers of iridescent diplomatic robes that shifted color with each movement. His features were striking, elegant and composed, with amber eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Dr. Reeves," he said, his voice melodic with the distinctive Lyrian resonance. "I've studied your papers on comparative xenolinguistics. Your theories on convergent language evolution are ambitious." Elena couldn't tell if that was criticism or compliment. "Theory becomes practice today, Envoy Vax. This artifact won't translate itself." A subtle movement at the corner of his mouth might have been amusement. "Indeed, shall we begin?" The laboratory assigned to them was state-of-the-art, with holographic interfaces and adaptive scanning equipment. As Elena initialized the systems, she couldn't help stealing glances at Theron. The stories about Lyrians barely captured their presence, the subtle luminescence of their skin, the deliberate economy of their movements. "You're staring, Dr. Reeves," Theron said without looking up from the artifact. "Professional curiosity," she replied. "You're the first Lyrian I've met in person, and you're the 14th human I've encountered, each remarkably different from the others. Disappointed?" Elena asked, immediately regretting the unprofessional question. Theron's gaze lifted to hers. "Intrigued. Your species embraces variation. Mine values harmony." They worked in silence for hours, the artifact slowly rotating in the scanning field between them. The preliminary data was puzzling. Certain symbols responded differently to Lyrian scanning frequencies than to Earth-based technology. "This section," Elena said, highlighting a sequence, "resembles the Lyrian glyph for confluence, but the surrounding context suggests division." Theron leaned closer, his scent reminiscent of rain-soaked cedar. In ancient Lyrian script, these weren't opposites but complementary concepts. "Like your yin and yang. You've studied Earth philosophy?" "Know thy neighbor," Theron said, the human idiom sounding exotic in his accent. "Especially when they might become enemies." "Or allies," Elena countered. Their eyes met across the holographic display, the artifact's glow illuminating the space between them with dancing patterns of light and shadow. "That depends on what secrets this artifact reveals," Theron said softly. "Some truths are dangerous." "Truth is only dangerous to those who profit from lies," Elena responded. Something shifted in Theron's expression, a newfound respect perhaps. "We may work well together after all, Dr. Reeves." "Elena," she offered. "If we're going to decipher ancient mysteries together, we might as well use our names." "Elena," he repeated, the name transformed by his accent into something musical. "Then you must call me Theron." As the station's day cycle dimmed to simulate evening, they made their first breakthrough, a partial translation of the artifact's opening sequence. When distant stars converge, new worlds are born. Neither knew then how prophetic those words would prove to be. Cultural exchange. 3 weeks into their collaboration, Elena and Theron had fallen into a comfortable routine. Mornings were dedicated to technical analysis, afternoons to translation attempts, and evenings, increasingly longer evenings, to discussions that wandered far beyond their professional duties. "You can't possibly believe that," Elena laughed, setting down her cup of tea. They had taken to sharing meals in the station's observation lounge, away from the curious eyes of other personnel. Theron's expression remained serious. "Lyrian music is mathematically superior in every way. Your human compositions are chaotic, unpredictable. That's exactly what makes them beautiful," Elena countered. She activated her tablet and selected a piece. "Listen to this. Debussy's Clair de Lune, Tell me you don't feel something. The delicate piano notes filled the space between them. Theron closed his eyes, his features softening as the music washed over him. Elena watched, fascinated by the subtle shifts in his expression, the slight parting of his lips, the gentle movement of his fingers keeping time. When the piece ended, he remained silent for a long moment. Well, Elena prompted. It's imperfect, he finally said. And yet, there is something in its imperfection that speaks to emotions I cannot name in either of our languages. Elena smiled. That's the point of art. It expresses what can't be said. Theron reached into his robes and withdrew a small crystalline object. This contains a Lyrian symphony, one considered unconventional among my people. Perhaps you will find similar, ineffable qualities in it. Their fingers brushed as she accepted his gift, a momentary contact that sent an unexpected warmth through her hand. The next day brought a setback. New scans revealed damage to a section of the artifact that had previously been hidden. This is a disaster, Elena muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. We've lost a critical connecting segment. Theron studied the holographic reconstruction. Perhaps not. In ancient Lyrian texts, meaning often resides in the spaces between words as much as in the words themselves. Like context clues? More like implied narrative. He hesitated. It's difficult to explain in your language. May I? He held out his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Elena placed her palm against his. His skin was warmer than she expected, with a subtle texture like fine suede. Close your eyes, he instructed softly. When she did, images bloomed in her mind. Conceptual frameworks, linguistic patterns, ways of understanding that transcended verbal explanation. The Lyrian perspective unfolded within her consciousness, beautiful and alien yet somehow comprehensible. She gasped as he withdrew his hand, the connection broken. What was that? Thought sharing, a limited form of how we communicate complex concepts among ourselves. His voice was slightly strained. It is not commonly shared with non-Lyrians. Thank you, Elena said, truly moved by his trust. That helps me understand. With this new perspective, they made rapid progress. The artifact began to reveal its secrets, a record of an ancient contact between their species, long before official histories began. Evidence of cooperation, cultural exchange, and possibly more. Our peoples have met before, Elena whispered, awestruck by the implications. And worked together, Theron added, perhaps even lived together. Their eyes met, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. Whatever divisions existed now were not inevitable. They were chosen, constructed, maintained. And what was constructed could be deconstructed. That night, as they shared another meal, conversation flowed more easily than ever before. Elena told stories of her childhood in the rainforests of New Brazil, while Theron described the crystal cities of Lyria that changed configuration with the seasons. I never expected to enjoy a human's company this much, Theron admitted as the station's night cycle began. Is that a complicated way of saying you like me? Elena teased. The look he gave her was intense, unguarded. I believe I do, Elena Reeves. More than is wise. The admission hung between them, fragile and momentous. Neither moved to break the silence that followed, a silence full of possibility and danger in equal measure. Crisis point. The alert klaxons jolted Elena from deep concentration. Red emergency lights bathed the laboratory in crimson as the station's AI announced, critical system failure detected, emergency protocols engaged, all personnel proceed to designated safety zones. What's happening? She asked, looking up from the artifact. Theron was already at the door panel, his fingers moving across the interface. The panel's unresponsive, he said, his usual composure slipping. We're sealed in. Elena activated her comm unit. Control, this is Dr. Reeves in Lab 7. We're locked in. What's the situation? Director Harlow's voice came through, fragmented with static. Sabotage. Main environmental systems. Station-wide lockdown. Conserve oxygen. The transmission cut off abruptly. Sabotage? Elena whispered. Who would? There are factions on both sides opposed to our cooperation, Theron said grimly. The artifact threatens those who profit from our continued division. Elena checked the lab's environmental controls. Life support is functioning, but we're isolated from the main system. We have maybe 6 hours of oxygen. She tried to keep her voice steady. Rescue protocols should be initiated well before then. If they can reach us, Theron said, we should prepare for the possibility they cannot. The next hours passed in tense activity as they attempted to override the lockdown, then to repair the compromised systems from within. Working together, they managed to restore minimal communication with other sections of the station, learning that the sabotage was extensive but contained. Repairs were underway, but time was becoming their enemy. 5 hours in, the air had grown noticeably thinner. Elena found herself becoming lightheaded, her movements sluggish. We should rest, Theron said, guiding her to sit against the wall. Conserve energy and oxygen. He sat beside her, their shoulders touching. The contact was comforting in their isolation. Strange, Elena said softly. I've spent my career studying communication between our species, but I never imagined dying alongside a Lyrian would be how it ended. We are not dying today, Theron said firmly, though his breathing had become more labored. The lower oxygen was affecting him too, his skin losing its subtle luminescence. Always so certain, she smiled weakly. Is that a Lyrian trait, or just you? My certainty is a facade, he admitted, a diplomatic necessity. In truth, I question everything, including my presence here. What do you mean? Theron was quiet for a moment. I was selected for this mission not for my linguistic skills, but because I was considered expendable. Expendable? You're one of the most knowledgeable xenolinguists in the Confederation, and a political liability. His amber eyes met hers. My family belongs to a minority philosophical tradition that advocates for closer relations with humans. My appointment here was meant to remove me from influence while appearing progressive. Elena let out a small, bitter laugh. We're not so different. My ambitious theories about language convergence, they've made me an outsider in academic circles. This assignment was a way to sideline me with a prestigious-sounding project expected to go nowhere. They underestimated us both, Theron said. And the artifact, Elena added. What we've discovered. It changes everything we thought we knew about our histories. The air grew thinner. Elena's vision began to blur at the edges. Acting on impulse, she reached for Theron's hand. His fingers interlaced with hers, the gesture transcending their physiological differences. Elena, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. There's a Lyrian tradition. When facing death, we share our deepest truth with those present, so that something of our essence survives. Tell me, she urged. From the moment I first saw you, he said, I recognized something in you that I've searched for all my life. A mind that seeks connection rather than separation. A spirit unafraid of difference. His thumb traced circles on her palm. In another reality, where we were not Lyrian and human, but simply two beings. A loud hiss interrupted as the laboratory door suddenly slid open. Emergency response personnel rushed in with portable oxygen units. As fresh air flooded the room, Elena held tight to Theron's hand, unwilling to break the connection between them, despite the commotion around them. Their eyes met in perfect understanding. Their conversation wasn't over. It was just beginning. Forbidden connection. 2 weeks after the sabotage incident, Elena and Theron were reassigned. The official reason? To continue their research in a more secure environment. The reality, as Director Harlow privately admitted to Elena, was more complicated. There's been talk, she said, her expression uncomfortable, about your relationship with the Lyrian envoy. Our professional relationship is exemplary, Elena replied carefully. It's not the professional aspect that concerns certain parties. Harlow sighed. The neutral research outpost on Kepler 452b has requested your expertise. Both of you. It would be prudent to accept. The neutral research outpost was a scientific haven established on a terraformed moon, governed by neither Earth nor Lyrian authorities, but by an international scientific consortium, far from oversight but also far from home. You're exiling us, Elena realized. I'm protecting you, Harlow countered, and giving you space to complete your work without Complications. 3 days later, Elena watched from the observation deck of the transport vessel as Helios Station shrank to a distant speck among the stars. Theron stood beside her close enough that their arms almost touched. "Second thoughts?" he asked quietly. "No," she answered truthfully, "but I'm wondering what we're heading toward." The outpost proved to be a revelation, a place where scientists from a dozen species worked together without the burden of political tensions. Their small research cabin sat on the edge of an engineered forest, with a view of purple-tinged mountains beyond. With newfound freedom from scrutiny, their work progressed rapidly. The artifact yielded more of its secrets, evidence of an ancient alliance between early human explorers and Lyrian settlers, working together to survive on a hostile frontier world. "They built a life together," Elena said one evening as they reviewed the latest translations, despite everything that should have kept them apart. The subtext hung between them, unacknowledged but ever-present. Their days fell into a comfortable routine. Mornings spent hiking through the alien forest, collecting samples and discussing theories. Afternoons dedicated to the artifact. Evenings sharing meals and stories beneath twin moons. It was during one such evening, as they sat beside a small fire outside their cabin, that everything changed. "I've been thinking about what you said in the laboratory," Elena said, watching the flames dance, "about recognizing something in me." Theron was still for a moment. "Oxygen deprivation can make one unusually forthcoming. Is that your diplomatic way of saying you didn't mean it?" "No." His amber eyes reflected the firelight. "It's my diplomatic way of giving you an opportunity to pretend I never said it." Elena moved closer to him on the bench they shared. "What if I don't want to pretend?" The space between them seemed charged with electricity. Theron's hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched her cheek. The contact sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the evening chill. "This is uncharted territory," he said softly. "I spend my life mapping uncharted territories," she replied, leaning into his touch. Their first kiss was tentative, explorative, a careful navigation of different physiologies united by common desire. His lips were warmer than she expected, with a faint taste of cinnamon and something uniquely alien yet intoxicating. As the kiss deepened, Elena felt as though the thought-sharing they had experienced before had somehow returned, emotions flowing between them in a current beyond words. When they finally parted, breathless, Theron rested his forehead against hers. "The artifact spoke of confluence," he whispered. "Perhaps this is what it meant all along." In the days that followed, they discovered each other with the same meticulous attention they had given the artifact. Differences in biology became opportunities for exploration rather than barriers. Their connection transcended the physical, a meeting of minds, cultures, worlds. Yet even in their secluded paradise, reality intruded. During their weekly communication with their respective governments, Elena noticed Theron becoming increasingly tense. "What is it?" she asked after one particularly difficult call. "The Confederation Council is displeased with my reports," he said, carefully neutral. "They feel I'm becoming too invested in the human perspective." "Are you?" A small smile played at his lips. "Undoubtedly," she took his hand. "Is there danger for you?" "Not immediately." His fingers interlaced with hers. "But eventually we will have to leave this place, return to our worlds." "Where we can't be together," Elena said, giving voice to the fear they had both avoided. "Where we would face significant obstacles," Theron corrected. "But the ancient humans and Lyrians found a way. Perhaps we can learn from their example." That night, as they lay together beneath unfamiliar constellations, Elena traced the patterns on Theron's skin that seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight. "What if we don't go back?" she whispered. "Where would we go?" "Somewhere new. The galaxy is vast. There must be places where we could simply be Elena and Theron, not human and Lyrian." He was quiet for a long moment. "Running away would only confirm what our critics believe. That connection between us is impossible within our societies." His fingers combed gently through her hair. "Perhaps there is another way." "What way?" "We finish our work, complete the translation, and then use what we've learned to change minds, not just our own." Elena considered this. "You want to be pioneers? Isn't that what we already are?" He kissed her softly. "The first step in changing the universe is proving change is possible." As dawn broke over the alien horizon, they made their choice not to hide their connection, but to transform it into something that could build bridges between worlds long divided. New Horizons. The message arrived 6 months into their stay at the Neutral Research Outpost. Both Elena and Theron were being recalled, effective immediately. The official reason cited was review of preliminary findings, but the underlying tension was clear in the formal language of the communiqué. "They know," Elena said, holding the tablet containing her orders from Earth Central Command. Theron nodded, his own message from the Lyrian Confederation displayed before him. Someone at the outpost must have reported us. They had been discreet but not invisible. Their relationship had evolved from private moments to a quiet openness among the diverse scientists at the outpost, many of whom had shown support or indifference rather than judgment. "What do we do?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. They had discussed this possibility many times during their months together. "We face them," Theron said, his voice steady but his eyes betraying concern. "Together." Their final night on the outpost was spent completing their work. The artifact's translation was now nearly finished, revealing a historical record of not just cooperation between early humans and Lyrians, but the formation of a third culture, a blending that had thrived until political forces from both homeworlds had intervened. "History repeats itself," Elena murmured as they packed the research materials. "They tried to separate them just as they're trying to separate us. But this time we have evidence that integration is not just possible, but beneficial," Theron replied. "The ancient colony thrived until external interference. Their technologies, art, philosophy, all advanced more rapidly through collaboration than either civilization achieved alone." The journey back to Helios Station was tense. They traveled on separate vessels, a deliberate strategy by their governments to isolate them. But they had prepared for this, embedding encoded personal messages within their official research transmissions. Elena's reception at Helios was frigid. Director Harlow met her at the docking bay, her expression grave. "The Ethics Committee is waiting," she said without preamble. "They're reviewing your status and security clearance." The hearing was exactly as Elena had expected. Accusations of compromised objectivity, questions about her loyalty, thinly veiled xenophobia disguised as security concerns. "Dr. Reeves," the committee chair said, "do you deny forming an inappropriate relationship with the Lyrian envoy?" Elena stood tall before the panel. "I deny that my relationship with Envoy Vax is inappropriate. Our connection has enhanced our research, not compromised it." "Your personal feelings have clouded your judgment." "My personal feelings have clarified it," she interrupted. "The artifact we've been studying proves that humans and Lyrians once lived together in harmony, creating a shared culture that benefited both species. Our relationship isn't an anomaly, it's a return to what once was." She presented their complete findings, methodically demonstrating how the ancient colony had developed technologies neither civilization had achieved independently. The evidence was compelling even to the skeptical committee. Meanwhile, across the station, Theron faced his own tribunal. The Lyrian representatives questioned his loyalty to their philosophical traditions of purity and separation. "You have allowed yourself to be influenced by human emotionalism," one elder accused. "I have allowed myself to recognize truth when I encounter it," Theron responded. "Our ancestors knew what we have forgotten, that diversity strengthens rather than weakens." For 3 days they defended themselves separately, unable to communicate. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. A joint session was called with representatives from both governments present. When Elena entered the chamber and saw Theron, the relief was overwhelming. Though protocol prevented them from touching, the connection between them was palpable to everyone present. "We have reviewed your findings," announced the Earth representative. "And while we maintain concerns about personal entanglements, the historical significance cannot be ignored." The Lyrian delegate nodded. "The evidence suggests our past interactions were more collaborative than our historical records indicate." What followed was not exoneration, but opportunity. They were offered a diplomatic mission to establish a new joint research initiative studying interspecies cooperation with the ancient colony as its foundation. "You would be the public faces of this initiative," Director Harlow explained. "Your relationship would be acknowledged, neither condemned nor celebrated, but studied as part of the research." "You want to make us an experiment," Elena said. "We want to make you pioneers," corrected the Lyrian elder, using the very word Theron had used months before. They accepted. What choice did they have? It was not the freedom they had dreamed of, but it was a beginning, a crack in the wall that had separated their civilizations for centuries. 1 year later, Elena stood at the viewport of the newly established Convergence Institute, watching shuttles arrive carrying the first cohort of human and Lyrian scholars selected to study together. Theron joined her, his hand finding hers as they observed their vision taking shape. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Becoming a symbol rather than just living our lives?" Elena considered this. Their relationship remained under constant scrutiny. Every interaction, every disagreement, every moment of connection was analyzed by sociologists and politicians alike. Their privacy was limited, their movements often restricted. Sometimes, she admitted, "But then I remember what we discovered in that artifact, how many others like us existed before and how their stories were erased." She turned to face him. "We're making sure that doesn't happen again." Theron touched her cheek gently, a gesture that had become natural despite the differences in their physiologies. The ancient text spoke of convergence, separate paths meeting to form something new and stronger. "Like us," Elena said. "Like us," he agreed, "but also bigger than us." Beyond the viewport, Earth and Lyrian ships moved in synchronized orbits around the Institute's neutral space station. Scientists who would once have viewed each other with suspicion now prepared to work side by side. It wasn't perfect. Tensions remained, prejudices lingered, but it was progress. That evening, in their private quarters, Elena added to the journal they had been keeping since their first days together. It would be published someday, they had decided. Another piece of evidence that connection across differences was not just possible, but transformative. "The ancient colony didn't survive external pressures," she wrote, "but they left behind enough of their story for us to find centuries later. Whatever happens to us, we're leaving our own record, not hidden in artifacts but lived openly, so that those who come after will know that boundaries between worlds are more permeable than they seem." Theron read the words over her shoulder, then added his own, "And that love in its infinite forms remains the most revolutionary force in any galaxy." As the Institute's lights dimmed to simulate night, they stood together at their viewport watching distant stars. Some of those stars had planets where other species were taking their first steps toward each other, facing the same fears and prejudices, discovering the same possibilities. "New horizons," Theron whispered. Elena squeezed his hand. "Just the beginning." In the vast darkness between stars, ancient light traveled toward them, photons that had begun their journey when humans and Lyrians first encountered each other long ago. The past and future converged in the present moment as they always had, as they always would, separate paths meeting to form something new and extraordinary.